Hello, good morning, happy Sunday, coming to you live from the East Coast into the West Coast, because that's where I'm from the West Coast. Hello people, hello friends, I hope we're all having a good morning. Hope you're all waking up and catching the sunrise this morning. I have the sunrise coming in from my window over there. It looks beautiful. It's very snowy where I'm at, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the snow. I'm here for the sunrise, the trees just silhouetting through the windows. So on that note, I want to just quickly just kind of like emphasize that this stream is going to be heavy. I think a lot of my streams are heavy, but this particular one is going to be a more general discussion about accountability. I have talked about accountability on the stream before, or on this, not stream, but I have streamed about accountability, and I've also made videos about accountability. And on that front, I'm going to make this general video. I'll be talking about several people, but I do want to kind of like state my intentions on this before I go headfirst into this, because if I don't give this pretext, this disclaimer, it may sound a little like just fucking drama for the sake of being drama. So I want to make it very clear what my intentions are from the start, which is I want to make the value of holding people accountable like normalized. I think when people cry out, you know, oh, that's cancel culture or something like that, I think it's disingenuous. You know, I think it's disingenuous when somebody says that's cancel culture. Listen, folks, I've been canceled before. I've been canceled like from different communities from time to time. It happens. I can probably say a majority of the time that they're right. That they're right to, you know, say, we don't want you in the community no more. I don't feel it's necessary to go after those people or to send people after them. And I think if you do that, if that's like your response to people trying to call you out for shitty things that you do, I think that's also very disingenuous. I think that if you are not holding yourself accountable to the standards that others hold you accountable to, including yourself especially, and I mean really, especially if they're your standards, then I think it's necessary for you to hold yourself to those standards and to be consistent with that. And there's a couple things I want to mention about that, first of all, and that is, if you do find yourself being, you know, in that position where you break from that standard, I think there's a series of things you should do. First of all, question why you did it. I mean, obviously you're against what you did. I mean, I hope so. Let's assume that you've gone that far. So then I would hope that at that point that you've taken the time to realize that something what you've done is harmful. So then you say, why? Why did I do this? There has to be a reasoning behind it. Whether you think it, besides whether or not, if you think it's legitimate. Like, if you don't think it's legitimate, still investigate why that reasoning occurred. And if you can kind of like find the reasoning behind it, then you can kind of further dissect and analyze why that behavior exists. And maybe even go a little step further. Try to see if that behavior is consistent throughout your life. Try to identify those moments, you know? Now, another thing I want to mention though is that, like, when we're holding accountability to a stature of normalcy, I think holding people accountable is an anarchist value. Like, people kind of like, you know, when cancel culture, we're gonna use cancel culture kind of like very loosely here for the sake of the video, but when people say that's cancel culture, and they say things like, they kind of have like these other like slippery slope arguments that makes no consistent, tangible sense. For example, like, this is big government, this is 1984, it's censorship, you know, this is like the deep state or whatever. I mean, of course, those are ridiculous fucking far-right fanatics at this point that we're kind of like going into, but they're not, let's be real here, they're not susceptible to accountability. We do hold far-right people accountable. That's like literally what this is all about. Anti-fascism. It's an advocation against fascist behavior. And reactionary and abusive behavior is arguably fascist in some aspect. Of course, not uniquely fascist in all cases. Some cases, it's just toxic and on its own has aspects of its own toxic reductionist behavior. But fascism is the acceleration and the maintenance of abusive behavior. And that's when we say that, you know, this claim about 1984 this and, you know, George Orwell that. Never mind that George Orwell literally fought fascists in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, literally on the front line, fighting alongside with anarcho-syndicalists and communists alike. Never mind that, you know, they have to make, they literally weaponize, you know, George Orwell just like on the basis of, like, you know, he wrote a song about like an authoritarian dictatorship and a police surveillance state. Besides the point, I'm going on a tangent here, but holding people accountable is not the same as 1984. That's my point here. And like, you see that, like, and sometimes when it was like with like Dave Rubin and PragerU kind of like making these points that, you know, like, these SJWs are going after you, you can't say slurs no more, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's literally Big Brother. And that's what I'm saying, it's ridiculous. All of these things that they do is dodging the question. It's dodging the question of you know, accountability, like whether or not they're going to hold themselves accountable. For example, even let's I mean, I don't have the sources on hand, actually, it just came to my head, but Shaun, YouTuber Shaun, probably gets, I mean, arguably gets more views than I do, but Shaun's been doing a great job of holding the BBC accountable to its journalistic standards. Shaun is not only prying at the question of whether or not there is transphobia in the articles written by BBC, but also just the fact that, like, when asked about it, when questioned about it, they dodged the question of transphobia in their articles, and it's extremely disingenuous. It's important that you go, and actually, I'm gonna, after this fucking stream, I'm putting a link in the description. Y'all go down, submit your fucking questionnaire, or not questionnaire, but fucking complaint to the BBC and hold them accountable for transphobia. And I'll put a link to Shaun's video as well in the description after the stream, because that's important. And we gotta get it out before December 5th, tomorrow. Or no, not December 5th, but December 6th, which is tomorrow. So you better hop on that dick real quick. Anyway, sorry, we're getting off topic again. I'm having difficulty staying on topic, but it is related, I promise, for those who are just tuning in. Listen, folks, like, everyone makes mistakes. Say you're young, right, and you're lost in life, and you kind of have, like, several epiphanies in life that things just aren't right. And then you find, like, a figure, like someone who you maybe you find influential. Say, for example, a punk rock star, like a singer, or maybe a movie star, maybe a celebrity, maybe someone on Twitch, maybe someone on YouTube, right now. You know, Onision is one big example of him being a big YouTube figure, and he has, you know, over time, built more of a following of people who follow him strictly for the shit that he does and never holding himself accountable. I mean, it's literally a circus act at this point. It's literally just him being a fucking bitch to cause problems, you know, and to profit on those problems. I think that's where we recognize that Onision, it seems, he's not going to be holding himself accountable to, you know, his history of grooming, his history of abusive behavior, gaslighting, manipulating people under, like, psychological trauma and pressure. And, you know, it's just things like that, you know, you gotta kind of, like, think retroactively, you know. I remember, like, or retrospectively, I don't know if I'm using the right word. Anyway, but Onision, at one point, I will admit, like, in the early 2010s, actually, yeah, just 2010. By 2011, I kind of jumped off the bandwagon. But yeah, I was one of his subscribers. I did actually unironically follow his content. I think at one point he even convinced me to be vegan. I was vegan for 8 years. If you ask me why I'm not vegan now, I cannot give you a good excuse. Don't ask me. It's not a good excuse. Anyway, the point being is that, like, he did convince me, you know, as one of his talking points, that he did that. And I thought he was really influential for doing that. But, like, over time, I did start to see that all he was doing was posting things online for the sake of profiting off of drama. You know, profiting off of the fact that he is abusive and his audience is waiting for him to take action on being accountable, and he never does. So I think in this respect, we can safely conclude that Onision will never hold himself accountable, you know, to what the people are saying. It's a long tunnel of nothing. I honestly don't recommend looking into it. I'm only using him as an example because he's the one I'm most intimately familiar with on a more grand scale. There's also Shane Dawson. There's also like Dan Avedon. I actually really like Game Grumps. Game Grumps had made some racial slurs in the past, specifically about Armenians, during a Let's Play of one of my favorite games of all time, Sonic Adventure. And it makes me really upset that that's in there, because I grew up in a neighborhood with them. And I have a long history of being friends with them that date back to my childhood. And while playing that game with them even, holy shit, that, man, it's... Anyway, sorry. So... that's what I'm saying, though. It's just that, like, people do that. People do make that mistake, especially when they're on a pedestal where they have the ability to be influential to others, you know. And it's important that if they have that influence over people, that they maintain their own behavior by their own standard, myself included. Straight up, myself included. Like, you hear shit about me, pretty good chance it's true. Like, I'm not even gonna fucking question it. It could, I mean, who knows? People have in the past spread lies about me. It has happened. But there has been times when people have said some really true things about me that should have been looked into sooner, in fact. And I'd like to talk about some more recent cases of this. I think a couple weeks ago I went into one about Graham McDermott, my former bass player of the band Patetico Mondo. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing again. I'm going to say right now, it's still bullshit that's going on. There's still, like, pussyfooting around the whole thing, like not just Graham but all of his friends, and it's getting on all of our fucking nerves. Graham, if you're watching this, yo, your masculinity is small dick energy to the largest extreme. Like, maybe small dick energy and largest extreme is contradictory, but it's It's about as contradict. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't the best sentence ever. But I do think one thing I am trying to say about that is that your small dick energy, as in like your inability to hold yourself accountable, is as contradictory to your standards of anti-sexist action. But that's besides the point. But let's take a look here. Let's take a look here, folks. I want to really emphasize here. We're going to start with a post by... Whoops, I clicked the wrong one. That's still the wrong one. This is not good. This is not good. I think it's this one. Yes, okay, cool. My most professional moment in live streaming history. Okay, so this is Whitney Flynn. For those who don't know, Whitney Flynn is, I believe, the trumpet player of Days and Days. I don't know if that's her pronouns. Let me know if it is not. I have checked. I did not see anything about it as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong again. If I am wrong, let me know, please. But Whitney Flynn is a trumpet player. I did almost see Days and Days in Lancaster after a really cold night rather, and I got really high. I saw the first band. I think it was like Good Cop, Bad Cop, the name of the band, and then I had to dip because, oh my god, I was freezing and very high. And I had to like park in like a Jack in a Box in Acton, California, just to be able to sober up and maybe have like a chicken sandwich and stay warm before I make the long drive home back to Van Nuys. Anyway, anyway, so yes, I'm not a huge fan of Days and Days, but what I am willing to do, of course, is to hold my favorite bands, you know, obviously Leftover Crack, Choking Victim, and, you know, Star Fucking Hipster, accountable to, like, you know, their standards. And that means taking Whitney Flynn's word seriously. Not doubting it, of course, not like trying to fucking, like, do some mental gymnastic and reasoning or whatever with them. Like, no, this is someone who is speaking out right here. I think this should be known, like, not just known, but recognized that this is someone speaking out. I feel like sometimes people see others speaking out, and it's not even just like, it's not even just like with this. It's also just like speaking out about injustices in our political system, our education system, the prison industrial complex, police brutality, and they don't take that seriously. Like, sometimes there's more evidence in certain cases, sometimes smoking gun amounts of evidence, and you know what? It's just like they still don't fucking take it seriously, and it's because, like, they have that same attitude. Oh, you know, me and my friend, we used to walk down the street and we used to go get ice cream at the local liquor store, and then we came home and we played, like, you know, Super Mario Brothers on Nintendo 64, and, you know, like he traded me all of his Pokemon when you know, fucking, like, when he was done with the game, so I could get all 151 Pokemon in Pokemon Blue, whatever, right? And so then they use that as an argument, as I have said before, to dodge the point of accountability, because they don't feel that they are confident enough to do that. I feel that should be something taught in schools. Like, and this is what, okay, I'm dodging the bullet here. We do need to read this. Okay, so Whitney Flynn says, Scott Sturgeon disabled my hands, mentally tortured me, nose contusion and a concussion. James McDowell helped me escape, but is now in their van. That kind of hurts worse. I made sure there was no such thing as leftover crack, but I think I need help making sure there is no such thing as a star fucking hipster, please. Now, I don't have evidence on hand for this, so I could be wrong, but I feel that Whitney Flynn is not Sturgeon's first victim. And I feel like there were other people who were also, as I have also heard in the past, affected deeply by Sturgeon and his abusive behavior. Sturgeon is a singer and rhythm guitarist, both Leftover Crack and Choking Victim. They are a huge influential bunch of bands to me. They are 3 different bands, 3 different projects. They were very influential for me. I cannot deny that. And I think, like, you know, it also very much influenced my politics as well as my music. But at the same time, like, if I were to fail to hold my heroes accountable to, you know, to my standards of addressing misogyny and sexism and patriarchal behaviors that lead to abuse and toxic outcomes and toxic patterns, then I feel that I am no better than the very people that Sturgeon sings against. And I think that's also a testament to Sturgeon too, that if Sturgeon seriously has not taken measures to recognize his ills and to think about how he has to grow from this point forward, then I feel that he is largely, I mean, arguably so, not holding himself accountable. And I feel that, like, a lot of the times people in, you know, a place of social influence with a lot of social capital, usually people in bands, usually people in, like, you know, in, again, Twitch streamers, YouTubers, television stars, authors, even, you know, journalists, people who have social capital, people who have a social influence, when they don't do that, they are actually perpetuating a cycle and of a culture that is self-defeating. Like, and it's also renders their message somewhat performative. Like, if someone, like I said, if someone is singing lyrics against patriarchy, against the abusive behavior of capitalism, and, you know, and questioning dynamics in hierarchy and hierarchical class structures and things like that, and they don't take that time to look inward, like, then all they are doing is sending that message out there, but without addressing any further harm from within. And that's kind of interesting, because it's just like, when we look inward, it is the single thing we have the most control over. I mean, sure, we don't have control over all of our means. You know, capitalism is very dominant, and it robs us of our resources and ability to survive. Undeniably so. But when we talk about our abusive behavior towards others, that in itself can be, like, detrimental to the messages that we are trying to send out. And I'm gonna be real with you. Like, if you have trauma and you're still abusive, you can't use your trauma as an excuse for, you know, being abusive. I think, you know, you can recognize that your abusive behavior is caused by your trauma, and I think that your trauma should be recognized as a crucial player in the overall detriment of your behavior. I think that should be recognized, and I think that should be discussed, and I think it should be taken seriously as a valid point. But to use it as an excuse to not take accountability for your actions is unacceptable. And so I do want to make one thing clear, though, that Star Fucking Hipsters, they as a band, they have given ownership of the Instagram account to this other person. I don't know if they're in the band or not, but apparently Sturgeon does not have access to that Instagram account anymore. The problem is, though, is that I don't know if that's means that he's out of the band. I mean, considering he's the front person. But more importantly, you need to keep in mind the demands of the victim. You know, Whitney Flynn here. Whitney Flynn made a demand that there wasn't a fucking leftover crack, that there wasn't a star fucking hipster. You know, I love leftover crack to death, but it's absolutely necessary to say that Sturgeon, if he has a history of abusive behavior, and again, this is not a shame on this person. This is not even a shame on the last person I made a stream about, Graham McDermott, but you know, if Sturgeon seriously has like a history of abusive behavior, and I'm talking like a normal, consistent, repeated pattern, then I think it's important to say that people like him should not be in the scene. They should not be in the community. They should seriously take some time to isolate themselves and to truly reflect on how they are impacting the community, whether it is negative or positive. Has Sturgeon done positive things for the community? Undeniably so. I remember going to leftover crack shows and them having anarchist literature for you to just pick up and read. It was really cool. But what does that mean when the singer is abusive? What does that mean? It's, again, performative. And as I say this, I don't want to give any illusion here as for me saying that, you know, there is accountability. I am not the person to make that judgment call. I am not the one to say whether or not Sturgeon has taken those steps or made the steps necessary to be accountable. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like in that relationship. I also don't think that people should not just listen to leftover crack anymore. You know, or star fucking hipsters or choking victim. If you want to listen to them, that's fine. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to stop listening to them because they're great. But at the same time, like, you should remember to hold him accountable to those standards. And if he continues to do that, you continue to press those standards onto him. You know, I think that, you know, like, it would be wise if Sturgeon did not play shows anymore. You know, in second place to, say, Slayer, Leftover Crack, and Choking Victim, let's say combined, they are the single band I have seen the most. I have seen Slayer a total of 4 times. I have seen Choking Victim twice and Leftover Crack twice. You know, if we were to, you know, kind of like for the sake of argument, put them together as the same band, I've seen them 4 times. But they're not the same band. I want to make that clear. Anyway, one more thing I want to mention about this, not this in particular, but I also kind of want to just dive into a whole other thing. So let's do exactly that. So this was written, as you can see, in February 3rd of 2016. It was written by, give me 1 second. Where is the thing I am looking for? I'm having a very difficult time looking for the window that I am trying to open here. It is actually rather perplexing. Okay. Wait, what the heck here? Hold on. Oh, heck. Uh-oh. Okay, we will have to set this up again. But as I set this up, let me explain. This was written by Pat the Bunny. Pat the Bunny is the singer and songwriter of several projects, including but not limited to Ramshackle Glory. What else? There's also I mean, Johnny Hobo and the Freight Trains. There's also what's his face? I'm also drawing a blank right now, TBH. I am very much just drawing a blank. I'm so sorry. I'm also trying to focus on putting this back up because, you know, it's just I kind of had a moment where that didn't work out for me. Anyway, my point of contention here, though, folks, is that he's been in a lot of really influential bands, and I think it's important that we discuss the behavior of Johnny Hobo, but not to critique it, but to understand that I feel that this is a very, very appropriate way to take accountability. Now, I do want to say also that Johnny Hobo, sorry, my apologies, Pat the Bunny has taken like, it seems to be like 5 to 6 years of like a hiatus. I have not heard a single word from Pat the Bunny. In my opinion, I feel that like this is an appropriate way to take accountability, but I also do feel that this could be an example for others to follow through and to maybe perhaps kind of like think for themselves on how they can also take accountability in times that they are not doing well in life, So let's read this. We're gonna go through it by paragraph. Wednesday, February 3rd, 2016. I recorded this album almost a year and a half ago with my old friend, the DIY Bandits. Releasing vinyls takes forever these days. The lag time between recording and release is why some of these songs have already been put out on other albums, although these are different recordings of those songs with different instrumentation. It also explains some of the incongruency between the perspectives presented by the song I wrote for this album and the content of the album notes I am writing now. The DIY Bandits were true rebels banging on the system when I met them 11 years ago, and they still are today. They were the first group of people to distribute my music, and that was sometimes a liability for them because I was an obnoxious drug addict, alcoholic teenager who made obnoxious music that a lot of people in the punk and radical political scenes really did not like. Really did not think was a good thing for the world. My apologies, I misread. In retrospect, I side with my detractors. The DIY Bandits had my back anyway, even though they might have been more successful if they hadn't. Years later, when I stole money from them to shoot heroin, they stood by me anyway, or they stood by me again, in a real way. They didn't say it was okay, so I could get away with it and do it again. They said they were angry, but they were willing to work on it. They said they didn't trust me anymore, and they weren't sure if they could again. They said I needed to pay them back. I got sober, and they were mad. They were still mad, and we worked on it bit by bit. And over time, I paid them back the money, and I still try to give them something extra whenever I can. You can ask them if they trust me yet. 6 years into my sobriety, I don't know if they could answer. I don't know if there is an end result to the process like this. Redemption stories are nice, but I think the reality is more like sweeping the floor. In our bare feet, we notice that the floor is dirty, and when we sweep the floor or not, whether we can sweep the floor or not, but either way, it can be a new situation tomorrow. I'm sorry, I didn't sleep last night. forgive me for my inability to read sometimes. We can't treat this as a problem. There's not a solution to it, but a clean floor is nice to walk on anyway. And someday we may even be able to sweep the floor because we respect the dignity of our feet, and not because we are afraid of the dirt. Some days, that's why I sweep now. That's almost kind of biblical in a way. Like, I mean, I know, like, Jesus, like, cleaned the feet of his apostles and shit, or disciples. I might be wrong on the terminology. You know what I mean. You know the story. But it's just like, he's not, like Pat the Bunny, he's not cleaning the feet of people. He's sweeping the floor so that way everyone can have a clean floor, you know. And I think that's like a metaphor for like accountability. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think it is. It might be a good metaphor. I think it is a good metaphor. It makes sense. And I think, you know, when he talks about like, you know, sweeping the floor, you know, so that maybe one day we can all sweep the floor. Maybe we can all walk on the floor, you know? We can have this floor to ourselves. And, you know, that's like, to me, that's like a metaphor for we can make this community better. We can improve ourselves by looking inward, you know? While the bandits are true rebels banging on the system, I am not really one anymore. They treat me with kindness and generosity anyway, because as well as being true rebels, they are still true friends who care about people beyond abstraction like ideology or subculture. I have grown into a basically ordinary person, albeit a somewhat strange one. Nothing I write feels very skilled at communicating whatsoever. It is I am trying to say. Whatever it is I'm trying to say. But it just seems important to tell you I'm not really feeling an anarchist or a punk anymore. My viewpoint has changed dramatically in the last 9 to 6 months, and this kind of politics and music is just not it's just not where my heart is anymore. I have no interest in convincing anyone of anything. So that's all that's important to say about it. I just don't want people to feel tricked that what they are buying or listening to my music. And again, like, you know, I think it's important that, you know, anarchism isn't something that you have to strictly abide to. You know, it is not something that you have to strictly, like, you know, like, live by as a philosophy, as like, I am an anarchist, therefore, like, my view is more important than yours. I mean, that's just as bad as trying to sell anarchism. You can't sell anarchism, right? But part of this, I mean, this is an anarchist tactic. This is actually like, if what Pat the Bunny is saying is true here, that if Pat the Bunny is taking that, if Pat the Bunny is taking the time to look inward and to judge himself based on his own perspective of what he feels is accountable, he is actually questioning his own legitimacy. And I think that's valuable. When you're able to look inward, see, again, he's got social capital, got a major influence, you know, and you take that time to look inward. That is a reflective form of behavior that can be an aspect of like accountability. Now, again, in this case, the variable being the DIY bandits, they have to decide themselves if they can feel safe and trusted that, or if they can trust Pat the Bunny that he has taken that time to be accountable. But that's not for us to decide. That's for them to decide. I want to read a couple comments in chat really quick before I continue. Tempest Lord Rayhan, they are a friend of the channel. I do want to read the chat real quick because I might have made a correction there. Or I might have made an error there. It says here, it doesn't seem too biblical in metaphor, but one I can use be, quote, no longer putting on new patches onto an old garment. We need a new garment. That is actually in the book. Which means you can't put on a new attitude onto an old problematic ways. You need new ways entirely to be better. Okay, so that does make sense. I do think that you make a good point in that, in hindsight, Jesus, washing the feet of his disciples might be a bit off on the biblical analysis. I appreciate the correction, and I also appreciate the suggestion of your own analysis. That is actually very helpful to our discussion here. I appreciate it. Also, happy Sunday. We're doing this on the Sabbath, everyone. I'm glad you guys made it. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna scroll up a bit because I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Okay, cool. It says here, love and respect to the DIY, punk, and anarchist scene. I put 14 years of my life into them and did my best to contribute to them and make them better. Plenty of times I failed. Sometimes I probably succeeded. Those scenes made me who I am, relatively speaking. So I'm not hating one bit. In real life, all this isn't so dramatic. Even if the inherent weirdness of communicating with strangers about going through significant life changes might make it sound that way. The music and merch will stay up for people who are interested at this link. In the next year, I will be transitioning into donating all the money that this project generates to groups I believe are making the world better. This has been my quote-unquote career since I was 17. So shifting out of that is going to take some time. As that happens, the Bandcamp page will start to list the groups that the money is going to. Out of respect for my anarchist roots, I will not give this money to groups that seek to achieve their goals that the money is going... I apologize. I gotta read it one more time. One of those leftist moments. Out of respect for my anarchist roots, I will not give this money to groups that seek to achieve their goals primarily through government policies. There we go. For people who don't want to pay for my songs anymore because they're made by a sellout poser or whatever, all of my albums will remain free for download on the Internet Archive at archive.org. Links to the free downloads are at my Bandcamp and all that stuff. There you go. I don't want to promote this guy any further. But you can read it, and it's there. It's all there. But I want to get to the last part of it. These days, my music project is to learn the trumpet. Hot Cross Buns is about where my skills are at right now. I have no plan to release or perform anytime soon. If I do perform music sometime in the future, it will probably be significant and significantly different than my previous work. If you look for music to like, I recommend that you continue to follow the ongoing career of Fishy, the other musician on the split record. He is truly amazing and fantastic human being and a great musician. May it hold warmth in our heart for the dignity of all. May we not know fear. May we not fear of being fools. Really. Pat, no bunny, at last. And there's an asterisk. There's one Ramshackle Glory album we've been working on since before I shifted gears in this way, and it will still be coming out sometime in 2016. Ramshackle Glory remains, as always, an outspokenly anarchist band with some non-anarchist members. Alright, it was important to read all this. I actually have not read it until just the other night, and I wanted to read that because I think it's important that we recognize that our heroes will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. I will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. I feel that protecting your heroes from scrutiny, it's a failure in like development and growth. I feel that when people are not holding themselves accountable and not correcting themselves, and when they amass such a following that they are unable to, hold themselves accountable to the standards that the community holds them to, they instead create like a cult of following, and that cult of following is more dangerous than any other thing we can observably see in our community, in our culture. It's a literal breeding of an inability to hold our standards, like as a society. Like police accountability. For example, a police officer kills an unarmed black man. Police are unable by design, even, because that's their job. Their job is to kill first, ask questions later, and never take accountability, because they're accountable to the state, not to the people. After all, they are state dogs. Think about it. Derek Chauvin got a due process instead of George Floyd, and Derek Chauvin was sentenced to jail because his extrajudicial murder started a whole fucking uprising. And the police ended up paying dearly for it. The police ended up not only just paying dearly for it, but also the state, also businesses. That's not a defense for any of them, by the way. That's just explaining why he was prosecuted. But Kyle Rittenhouse, on the other hand, he was out there to quote-unquote defend businesses. He hopped the border, obtained a firearm illegally, and killed 2 people, and shot one person that's still alive today. And that person, by the way, that's still alive today is a fucking medic with paramedical history or paramedical education. This kid's a fucking 17-year-old groomed boy. Groomed by the police state and groomed by his fucking patriotic surrounding in a fucking nationalistic suburban white neighborhood. And you have to tell me that this kid is not being held accountable at all? You're gonna tell me that kid's not accountable to his actions just because the state hasn't properly given him the sentencing that he deserves? In comparison to, say, to all these other black people in the community who are shot and extrajudicially murdered by the police, without due process. You know, like these people, these black people who are like taken to to the death sentence, to be fucking executed. Julius Jones was almost murdered, extrajudicially executed by the state of Oklahoma just a day before Kyle Rittenhouse's verdict. That really says something about how accountable the nation is. And after, you know, and the only real reason why Kyle Rittenhouse got away with murder like the way he did was because there was a fucking riot of fucking settler-ass fucking armed militia men, you know, like belonging to different traditionalist, white nationalist fucking groups. Proud Boys, Patriot Front, you name it. And they were, and you know, obviously, I mean, let's just be real here. If Kyle Rittenhouse was proven guilty on all of those things, there would have been a fucking riot. They would have broken in there, probably killed some people, did another January 6th. You think the judicial system's not aware of this? They absolutely are. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. You think we're fools? No, we're not fools. We see what you're doing. Like, the state literally fucking breeded an entire fucking culture of far-right nationalism and patriotic fucking foolishness and fascist fucking absolute fucking ridiculous nonsense to the point of of making it incapable of holding itself accountable to the culture that it breeds. Literally, like, a few weeks later, like, a few days ago, they can't even have a fucking Christmas parade over there, like in Wisconsin, without someone causing more terrorism over there. Like, literally, fucking, like, people running over others and all that shit just like in broad daylight. Like, are you fucking serious right now? Are you fucking serious? Like, the police, because they are unable to keep, like, their own fucking law enforcement accountable to the standards that they uphold on their citizens. And by the way, it's not even really a standard. It's fucking abusive gaslighting and torture. Like, it's masquerading as accountability. They can't even hold themselves to that standard. And yet they breed an entire culture of crime. As Kropotkin would say, prison is a fucking university of crime. It is a cycle of crime. It creates crime. If there was no prison system, there would be no crime. And when I say crime, I mean there would be no crime in the sense of property crime. Because let's face it, we have laws now, but they do jack shit to protect human rights and human safety. There's no way to truly hold people accountable in our capitalist system. You know, capitalists have laws in place to prevent them from being held accountable by unions. It took unions to fight for laws to defend their own right to have unions. But that doesn't stop corporations like Amazon and Walmart, Kmart, fucking Whole Foods, you know, Go-Kart, or Instacart, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't stop them from making anti-union propaganda. The amount of accountability that the law has honest people is in favor of corporations and not the people. If you do an investigation on how many rape kits are still uninvestigated by law enforcement, you would be surprised. If you look at the amount of indigenous women who are still missing from kidnappings and mysteriously vanishing, you know, you can't make the argument at all that there is accountability. There is no accountability. It doesn't exist under the capitalist system. I'm going to paraphrase a quote. It goes something like this. Anarchy is no guarantee that there won't be crime. Government is a guarantee that there will be crime. Or the kind of better, paraphrase it. Anarchy is no guarantee that there won't be murders or theft or injustice in the world. But government, therefore a state, is a guarantee that there will be injustice, that there will be theft, that there will be murders, that there will be awful things that are not righteous, that are not acceptable. It is a 100% guarantee. I'm waiting for the guy that goes, like from a Men's Warehouse, that goes, I guarantee it. Anyway, sorry. I mean, even the state, it doesn't hold itself accountable to the fact that over 70% of climate emissions is caused by a few corporations, a handful of corporations. You know, and the state does pass legislation to protect those corporations. The NAFTA, the GATT treaty, the TPP, several trade agreements in several nations, multinational corporations, and multinational trade deals protect corporations and their fucking hide to not hold themselves accountable to the people, violating workers' rights laws, violating environmental laws, violating like basic human rights, violating everyone's rights, just to squeeze more fucking money out of your fucking pocket, and to kill you in the end. Because after all, the working class is disposable to them. But they won't hold accountable to you. They don't need to be accountable to you. What, are you seriously gonna think that because they're super majorly influential that they can maintain a structure like this? Especially a coercive structure like this. Give me a fucking break. Okay. We are about an hour into this, and I think we're about done. But I do want to make one thing clear, and that is anyone I've mentioned in this stream, don't go after them, don't yell at them, don't make their days worse. But I think it's important to hold them accountable to those standards that we have discussed, but also to support the victims of the issues or the abusive behavior that these people have inflicted onto them. You know, Sturgeon, Pat the Bunny, myself, Onision, Shane Dawson, anyone, really anyone you hear about doing things that they shouldn't be doing, make sure you are firm with them. Make sure that you are strong with them. Make sure that you speak up to them. And that you tell people about them to make sure that they are also aware. You know, I'm going to say this again about Graham McDermott. I'm extremely disappointed. That not just him, but also, his friends, his very friends, and my very friends are still fooling around and not taking that time to hold them accountable. It's weird. It's really weird. I remember, even the very people that I previously have called Graham out on his shitty behavior with, are still causing problems like this. They're still not holding Graham accountable. They're pussyfooting around, the concept of accountability and truly meaningfully addressing this stuff. Like, there's these fucking, like, I mean, just go to Graham_is_an_abuser, the Instagram post, the Instagram account. You'll see what I mean. Like, they're acting extremely inappropriate, and it's a sign of having not matured at all. It is the opposite of what we want out of Graham. You know, we want Graham to be a contributing member of society. We also want Graham to be a sufficient revolutionary in, you know, the revolution. But that also means that if he's not taking that time to look inward, then he is detrimental to the revolution. I've already gone into so many different fucking points about how that is in my previous stream about him. I'd rather you watch that instead. I'm gonna read one last comment and then I'm gonna wrap up. By Pork Chop Express 07 says, "The law, in its majestic equality, forbids rich and poor alike to sleep under bridges, to beg in the streets, and to steal their bread." And it's by Anatole France. I don't know who Anatole France is, unfortunately. Maybe I'll look that person up when I end the stream. Or if you want to tell me in the comments, you're more than welcome to do so. But I do think that, in retrospect, that can be seen as true. The poor are usually like shoved out under the bridge by law enforcement. Law enforcement is usually there to kick poor people out of homeless encampments and parks, and yes, under the bridge. Literally, like, if I take my guitar out into the street in, you know, gentrifying, like, you know, downtown neighborhood or whatever, law enforcement will be there instantly. It's happened to me before. But also, like, the rich, they own all that means of production. They own the means in which they can get richer. So then neither the rich or the poor are going to be under the bridge, but for different circumstances. And the law affects both of them differently. French poet, thank you, Pork Chop Express 07. Thank you, I learned something today. Anyway, friends, before we go, I wanna has this song been playing the whole time? Hold on. Is it? I hope not. Okay. Anyway, let's do this. No, that's not it. What happened? I thought, Did I? Oh no, we're good. This is a song by Bouncing Souls called Kids and Heroes. Bye.
Hey, where have you gone? You used to be the one we looked up to. It seemed like nothing could go.
I am doing a terrible job of this. Are you fucking kidding me?
Nothing in life is sure, but anywhere you're gone, I guess you weren't here from last. In the end, it's all a question of, hey, where have you gone? You used to be the one that we looked up to. Seemed like nothing could break you down. How was the price and was it worth it? Nothing in life is sure, but anyway you're gone, I guess you weren't here from the have you gone?